a man a fool. I want to share with you a dramatic little story.
The world's going crazy, but then so am I. Taking time to compose, expose my hell and then organize. Free your mind, everyone got a narrative and a white lie. People painting pictures for the masses just for dollar signs. It's all about the group you're with. I don't care about the life you live. All I see is a small group in your large group that don't see they sin. Nobody look at character, everybody look at color skin. Nobody look at numbers or facts, it's just how it is. Growing up in the modern age with modern lights and a modern case, just a renegade with plenty rage. I pick fights, see the demon say, more Gatorade, keep the energy and the stamina. Man, a race long, it's a marathon, don't get it mixed like Tangler. Man, get your manners up, no elbows on the table. And pay attention to the people spitting fables. And dialogue is what gets them exposed. If you can't hear this side, then you already know. Man, top dog, not top wolf. Nigga brothers band, yeah, lead the pack with a piece of hand. Building bridges and lighting fires, it's all tribal. I feel the ground and the soil, I see the death and the toil. I hear the voices of slaves, I feel the winds and they bringing that change. I'm seeing darkness looking at heartless, losing their souls. Interesting things, nobody tends to know anything. I got the keys, enter the kingdom, yes it is free. Believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, see what you'll see. Yeah. The problem's in the heart of man, corrupted in the garden then. Trusted enemies instead of listening to father's plans. Divided and so different, but made in the same image. Man, how boring would it be if only one flavor existed? Man, systems come and go and that's a fact of life. And people can reverse laws and bring back the strife. But if we added all the people to the kingdom, nor Jew nor Gentile, all would be forgiven. I think we're looking and attacking the fruit, not understanding that the problem's all in the roots. I'm not talking about statues of dudes, I'm talking about hatred that's been sown, that's been lived in loops. If we don't change the way we see them things, we gon' be stuck in the same old games. And if we don't stop and make a new way, hell, we'll still be here, running in circles. Running in circles.
But I couldn't sleep. Why Jesus called a man a fool. I want to share with you a dramatic little story.
The world's going crazy, but then so am I. Taking time to compose, expose my hell and then organize. Free your mind, everyone got a narrative and a white lie. People painting pictures for the masses just for dollar signs. It's all about the group you're with. I don't care about the life you live. All I see is a small group in your large group that don't see they sin. Nobody look at character, everybody look at color skin. Nobody look at numbers or facts, it's just how it is. Growing up in the modern age with modern lights and a modern case, just a renegade with plenty rage. I pick fights, see the demon say, more Gatorade, keep the energy and the stamina. Man, a race long, it's a marathon, don't get it mixed like Tangler. Man, get your manners up, no elbows on the table. And pay attention to the people spitting fables. And dialogue is what gets them exposed. If you can't hear this side, then you already know. Man, top dog, not top wolf. Nigga brothers band, yeah, lead the pack with a piece of hand. Building bridges and lighting fires, it's all tribal. I feel the ground and the soil, I see the death and the toil. I hear the voices of slaves, I feel the winds and they bringing that change. I'm seeing darkness looking at heartless, losing their souls.
Writing, Janet Brown, and a talented staff and crew who deal with nearly any political, press, and production issues.
What is up, everybody? So we are live. We are live in real time here. Let me move this display thing for now. So let me adjust this chair a little bit. All right, get comfortable. I am excited to do this. One thing that I want to make sure that we talk about before we start to discuss, before we start to even look at these debates, and they should be getting started pretty soon, I want to talk about the worldview of this debate. So a lot of what's going to be talked about today is going to be framed in a particular way. It's going to be framed in the modern kind of leftist, very progressive phrasing, right? So everything is going to be like, given that Black Lives Matter, how do you, Vice President Pence, think about X, Y, and Z? And it's going to be phraseology. It's going to be a lot of like questions that are similar to, are you still beating your wife? You know, that kind of cliche question that you can't get out of. You know, there's no good answer for it. So I want you guys to look out for that. Even if you're a leftist, even if you're sitting on the left side of the aisle, even if you're more kind of neutral with everything, ask yourself, what is the phrasing of this question? And is this a question that is honestly an actual question? Or is it just some kind of performative thing that the moderator is doing in order to corner Mike Pence into a corner? Because I want to make something clear. Even if you hate Trump, you hate the Trump administration, you think they're racist, you think they're horrible people, we still have to have fair debates. Because if their ideas are actually inferior, then a good, fair, honest debate would prove that to be so. So we can't go into this thinking like the moderator has to do the dirty and they have to like do everything in their power to make this guy look bad. That can't be where we come from as a people. That can't be where we come from as a functioning society. Some of you might have the idea that the world itself or the United States infrastructure itself is corroded and it needs to be destroyed and taken down. If that's so, if that idea is true, because we're talking about truth here, we're not just talking about subjectivity. If that idea is true, then we should be able to see that without having to posture certain questions and phrase them in order to trick people, which is what a lot of what was happening with Chris Wallace in the last debate. A lot of what was happening was this posturing of like, given that, you know, the right-wing militias are rioting in the streets, X, Y, and Z. And then they would ask a question. Now that's posturing. That is not honest questioning. That is a question based on a lie. So the very fact that right-wing militias are rioting in the street is implied in the actual question, and that's not true. It's not true at all. You're seeing Antifa riot in the streets. You're seeing protesters. You're seeing Black Lives Matter riot in the streets. You're not really seeing right-wing people. The only time you're seeing that is when right-wing people and left-wing people meet. But you're not really seeing any of that. You're seeing the police and you're seing rioters. And what parties do they belong to? Well, the police, I guess, in some ways are for the American people, right? Because they're trying to protect law and order. So I don't know, maybe you want to call the police right wing. I don't see how that would work. But here's the thing. If we have honest and fair debates, and if your ideas actually are superior, then they will win in a logical line of questioning. There shouldn't be this trick questioning. So I want you guys to look out for that. Also, another thing I want you to look out for and keep in mind as you're watching this is Kamala Harris's response and where her motivations lie. A lot of what Kamala Harris is, in my opinion, going to do tonight is going to be posturing and using her liberal cool points, right? The idea that she's a black woman or that she's a woman at all, or that things are harder for her simply because she's a woman or she's black. All of those things are going to be embedded in her answers, and that she's going to be throwing shade at the fact that Mike Pence is a straight white Christian male, right? This idea of like heteronormativity or cisgenderism is going to be thrown out. And I think this is going to play into a politics thing. And if you're a Christian, I want you to listen very closely. I want you to listen because the left is completely against every value of Christianity. And I'll prove it. Abortion is anti-life, where the Bible says that we were formed in the womb, that God knew who we were even before we were formed in the womb. You know, the idea of homosexuality and gay marriage and all of these things. Now, have your thoughts on them. Sure, you don't have to agree with me, but I want you to see that the traditional values of Christianity, marriage, men being the head of the household, heteronormativity, all of these things are standing in opposition to what the left is doing and what the left espouses, which is free love and this idea of critical race, where everything is broken up either by your race or by your sexual identity. All of these things are what Kamala Harris is going to be pinning her arguments on. And she's going to be trying to drag Mike Pence into that arena. Now, if Mike Pence wants to win this, he has to stay out of the arena of identity politics, and he has to pull things back into a lens of logic and reason, and he has to do that by refusing to buy into her premises. The minute that Pence buys into Kamala's premises, he's dead. He's toast because he can't win because he's a straight white male. Therefore, it's null and void. Whatever he says doesn't matter. So he has to posture everything along the idea of truth and logic and objectivity, which is easy for him to do because he's a Christian, because the Christian worldview states that we have objective truths that are given to us by God. And so the left doesn't have that kind of a worldview. Everything is subjective. Love is love. So, okay, so then what is love? Love is love. That's what it is. There are these circular arguments that ultimately collapse on themselves, just like the idea of Black Lives Matter. Okay, so which Black Lives Matter? Do only the Black lives that are being killed by white police officers matter, or do all Black lives matter? Because if they do, then we would care about the shootings going on in Chicago. We would care about the babies being aborted. There's no logical, consistent argument for the left. And so I want you to pay close attention to that. While they're diving deep into policy, while Kamala is going to try and posture herself as, let's say, the female Obama, which I feel like she's trying to do, take a step back and ask yourself, is this a sustainable argument? Is this a sustainable point of view or a worldview? Because if it's not, then how is it going to fit? How is that going to be a fit worldview to lead us into the future of America? It can't. The argument love is love won't lead us into a future generation of peace, love, and harmony. Although the left likes to espouse these ideas of utopia, which utopia literally means no place. You meaning no and place meaning utopia. Like the word utopia doesn't, in the actual phrasing of the word, it's discredited, meaning you can never achieve it. So the left likes to strive for this idea of a perfect world, yet everybody disagrees on what that world looks like. So I want you to look out for those things. I want you to be very careful. What time is it now? We got like 6 minutes left. So I want you guys to understand something. A lot of what's been happening with politics right now has been based on the idea that Trump is like a racist and Trump is a homophobe, or he hates my people, he hates brown people. And a lot of it is very insulting to me because it lets people think that somehow I'm in support of a man that hates me as an individual, when the truth of the matter is there's still people on the left who espouse this idea of kids in cages as if it's something that Trump did or something that Trump didn't stop. I want to be clear. Trump stopped that as soon as he got into office. And on top of that, he is giving kids a safe place to be in while they're going through the process of either getting into the country or getting sent back because they were sent there with child traffickers, which is what happens a lot of the times. I've talked to people that work at the border, and I've talked to friends who specialize in that area. And this is what they're telling me. A lot of kids coming across the border in Mexico are not, first of all, not from Mexico only, but also may not be going there with their parents or even somebody who's related to them. A lot of times what's happening is they're paying families in other countries like Honduras and Ecuador and Mexico, all these things, are paying somebody to take their kids into the country because they know the process and they know how to get in. Now, it's up to us to be responsible as a country that's letting them in to decide whether those kids are safe with those adults or not. And if they're not, then the only way that we can keep that process there and ensure their safety is by holding those kids and separating them from potential sex traffickers or potential child traffickers. And that's the reason that there's a separation at the border. It's not because Trump is this big bad devil that wants to keep kids from loving their families. Like what sane human would do that? There's a process to everything. And I feel like what's happening on the left is this inability to understand nuance, this inability to really see like, okay, there's got to be a reason for this. What's the actual reason? There's no questioning on the left. It's just kind of taking everything wholesale, just like this thing with Trump and COVID, which I think is going to have a play in today's debate. This idea of, the left somehow thinks that the right thinks COVID is a myth. Of course, there's loony people. We don't have a monopoly on loony people, though. There's loony people on the right. There's loony people on the left. There's loony atheists. There's loony Christians. There's loony Scientologists. Like, there's a lot of crazy people in a lot of different forms of life. So, in a lot of different areas of life. So, we can't say that all of the right thinks that COVID is this hoax. Like, most of my family works in the medical field. I understand the severity of COVID, and I understand what's going on with it. I'm not here to say that it's irrelevant, but what I am here to say is that we need to stop politicizing this issue, because what happens is it starts to hurt small business owners. We need to allow people to take their own risks if those risks are intended to. A lot of what's happening with the left is this forgetting of humanity and the forgetting of of human nature. We're forgetting that humans are naturally flawed. They are naturally sinful. We are naturally not perfect. Nobody's going to argue that, but there's become this trend of like spiritualism and perfection, and we're all like just trying to get to our enlightened space, our enlightened place. And what that's caused within politics is this idea of a possible utopia that's just out of our reach. If we could just get close enough that we can grab it, we might be able to grab some utopia, but it's not possible. And the capitalistic system of America allows for human flaws. It allows for humans to be flawed and still thrive and still live together in harmony to the extent that it's possible, because we're not perfect. Any organization or any structure or any institution that's built with human people will always have flaws. And I think that's one thing that the left has to come to grips with. We can never perfect an institution. We can never make it completely inalienable and perfect, because humans are not perfect. And so keep that in mind as you're watching this debate, because it's gonna be a side that thinks everything is broken, which is Kamala Harris and the Democrats, thinks everything is broken, everything needs to be fixed, everything needs to be torn down and built back up, or it's just not good enough yet. We need to do better. Versus a side that says we're great, we're already good, we can use some work on some things, and we're going to work on those and find solutions. But really, America is a good place to live, and it's probably the best place in the world to live, if I'm gonna be honest. So keep that in mind. Do you want to live in America where the leaders of the country think that the country sucks? Or do you want to live in a place where the leaders of the country are actually proud to be Americans, and they want this country to succeed, and they want to find solutions, not just talk about the problems over and over and over again? So think about those things as you're watching this, and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, Kamala's making kind of some sense here. Listen, take into account her perspective. Her perspective is that America sucks and we need to rebuild it, and we need to fix everything and take the people off the Senate. We need to stack the courts. I bet you she doesn't answer the question about stacking the courts, and she defers to Biden, and she says, oh, well, that's something the president has to talk about, or the future president. Guarantees she won't answer that, but we'll see. Let's see how I do. Things are about to start, so give me 2 seconds. I'm going to hop out of here because, like I said, I'm my own tech guy, and we're going to get rolling. Let's see. Who's in here with me, by the way? If you're in here with me, say hi. Say what's good. Can we hear? Well, there's nobody. Let's see. Let me see if I could turn up the volume on this thing a little bit. Let's see if we can watch it on CNN.
I still remember back to that. That's when the first presidential election I covered. There were lots of people who said, there's no difference between Joe Biden. There's no difference between Al Gore and George W. Bush. People said that. Go back and look at the coverage. They're basically the same. Fast forward.
All right, CNN. I bet you I get a copy strike, but that's okay. Let's enjoy it.
So the stakes are very high, not just
stakes
for
are very high
in their political futures, not just for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but also for the country. And I'll reset here just for one other minute as we go into this debate. Remember, Donald Trump is losing this presidential election right now. You can debate how much he's losing it by. I would say it's somewhere between.
He's right about that. All of the polls are very much in Biden's favor right now.
Almost all the swing state polling I've seen, including in places like Texas and Georgia, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are running competitively. Joe Biden, in a poll that came out yesterday, was up 12 points in Pennsylvania, a state that Donald Trump won. So remember that as you go into this. Nia made this point early on when we were talking. Mike Pence and Donald Trump need something to happen, whether it's this debate, whether it's the next presidential debate, whenever that is. It's scheduled for October 15th, though we're not sure if Donald Trump will be cleared from COVID by then.
He's already cleared from COVID.
If nothing changes in this race, whether it's in this vice presidential debate, whether it's in the next debate, whether it's in something in the next 28 days, if nothing changes, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States.
All right, guy. Calm down. Calm down with your typewriter over there.
Keep that in your mind as you're watching this debate. What that means is Mike Pence needs to play more often.
You know what's hilarious is that I'm here telling you guys I'm biased. Like, I am a conservative. This guy claims that he's objective, and he's there like, careful, Biden will be your next president if you're not careful. He's pretending. Look, CNN politics editor at large.
So when you watch it, remember who needs it more, and there is no question at this point that Donald Trump and Mike Pence need it more than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That is just a fact based on the data. And we are here, and the debate is here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, was good.
20, sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate.
It's my honor,
an important
Susan.
part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
Now, keep in mind, Mike Pence is a Christian and a very avowed Christian, so he's definitely going to be using that worldview a little bit. Let's see what Kamala does. It's interesting the setup with the desks and everything as opposed to standing. I'm not sure if I like that or not.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus.
Yeah, let's see what's
The two
going on
campaigns
here.
and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them.
It's fight night,
on behalf
guys.
of
What's
the millions
up?
of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively.
Yep.
But Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues.
Look at that eye contact.
Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much.
I knew COVID would be
Senator
first.
Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past
It's not.
week,
See, so this is
Johns
the
Hopkins
posturing I'm talking
reports
about.
that 39
implying
states
in the
have had more
question
COVID cases over the past
what is
7
already a
days
fact,
than in
as
the
if
week
it's a
before.
fact, even though it's not.
9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond.
Lockdowns and masks.
Thank you, Susan.
That's what they're doing. That's what their plan is.
The American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease.
Mike Pence is
1
so
in
much
5
more.
businesses closed.
I don't know.
We're looking at
What's the word I'm looking for?
frontline workers who have been
Composed
treated like
than Trump.
sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months
I like
had
the
to
eye
file for
contact.
unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th,
as opposed to the Democrats,
what they knew, what they might have done to prepare?
As opposed to
They
the
knew and they
Democrats
covered it
spying
up.
on Trump's administration,
The
which was
president said it was
recently
a
released
hoax.
actually today,
They minimized
showing that
the
Obama
seriousness of
actually
it.
was
The
part of
president
Russiagate
said,
and not
"You're
Trump.
on one side of his ledger if
Oh,
you wear a
God.
mask, you're on
Imagine
the
a
other side
government
of his
that would
ledger
lie to
if
you.
you don't." And in
Naive.
spite of all
Only
of that,
naive
today,
people
they
fall for
still
this.
don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan.
Still
Well,
don't
Joe
have a
Biden
plan.
does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy,
Which is
contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine,
all
and
of
making
those things
sure that it will
are
be
taken
free
care of
for
already.
all. That is the plan that Joe Biden
Here we
has,
go.
and that I have, knowing that
Socialism.
we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you,
their right to re-election based on this.
Ooh,
Thank you, Senator
forfeited.
Harris.
Like they
Vice
have
President
no
Pence,
choice.
more than
This is the phrasing, the
210,000
phraseology that I'm
Americans
talking
have died
about.
of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population
to the question.
is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
You hear the
Susan,
phraseology?
thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for
So much class.
hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you.
Class act, dude.
And our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision.
Yep.
He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resource and support they needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way.
That's exactly right.
And quite frankly, When I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
Woo!
And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made. It's saved countless American lives.
The man.
Would you like to respond?
I'm such a Pence fan.
Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss.
Now, the problem here is going to be that liberals are going to take these 6-minute increments
is the head of the task force
and act like it was a freaking mic drop. Oh, she shut him up. But really, he addresses every point that she makes. And because she's going first,
that they knew about
all of a sudden she's in the right. Because now he's at the effect, he's not at the cause. He didn't set the premise. She set the premise.
He said because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
no, but Susan, this is important. I want to add, but Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Yeah, you can have 15 more seconds, and then we'll give the Vice President a chance to respond.
So I want to ask the American people.
She's already coming undone.
When you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm were you when your children couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
Thank you,
Let's
Senator
give Vice
Harris.
President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to respond.
You know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice. The sacrifices the American people have made. The reality, if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. Now, that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also said to us,
President
if we did everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President
Now, one
Pence,
life lost is too many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices.
You see what I mean? And this was what I was talking about since the beginning. Somebody who hates America and everything that America stands for, which is Kamala, and somebody who wants the American people to win, which is the Trump administration.
Event 11 days ago, what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
You see the phraseology again, implying guilt, implying what is already right and what is already wrong before they even get the question.
They're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know.
This is what the media always does. And it's horrible for debates because it's not the moderator's job to instill morality.
And their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans.
Oh, snap.
We told the American people what
I didn't realize you guys were commenting.
People made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward.
Brandon Lane, Worshipper Mug, Christina Sparks, CC.
A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the president introduced Judge.
Glad you guys are here.
Thank you, Vice President.
At that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there, and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You see, and this is another
consistently
common
talk
thread.
about
We
mandates,
trust the
and
American
not
people
just
versus the
mandates with
American people are too
coronavirus,
stupid and
but
dumb to do
the
anything. We have to take care of them and give them free stuff.
Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people.
No.
Respect the American people
respecting
when
the
you tell them
freedom.
truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader,
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a
The
food
appeal to
line
emotion, the
because
leftist trope.
of the ineptitude.
Aren't they so bad? Look at me in the eyes. Aren't they so bad?
To the American people. So let's
If you're
talk about
watching out
caring
there,
about the American people. The American
don't
people
you just
have
hate
sacrificed
every other
far too
YouTuber?
much
Wouldn't you just
because of
rather
the
be here with a
incompetence of this
YouTuber that cares about
administration? It
you,
is asking
who
too much
loves
of the
you and
people.
respects your
It
views,
is asking too much
and will
of the
actually read your
people.
comments
That
in
they
the
would
comment
not be
section?
equipped with
That's
the
what she's doing.
information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their parents
President-
and
No,
their
I'm
children.
sorry. Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If
Because
the Trump
of human
administration
nature.
approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If
Good
the
question.
public health professionals,
That was
if
actually a
Dr.
really good
Fauci,
question.
If the doctors tell us that we should
She
take
can't
it, I'll
say
be the
yes
first
or
in
no.
line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
What if they both tell you?
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days.
Considering
Vice
that Trump
President
already
Pence,
beat
have you had a
COVID.
conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not,
This is pretty
you
much
think you should?
priming
You
the
have 2
minds of
minutes without
Americans
interruption.
to say,
Well,
okay,
Susan, thank you.
what if
I
Joe
would like to
Biden
go back.
dies? Do I want Kamala
I
Harris
think
to
we
be
need to move
president?
on.
That's
No,
what this
thank you,
is.
But I would like to
Vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu.
Christina,
60
yes.
million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives.
That's right.
His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the Strategic National Stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we
Thank
still
you, Vice
learned
President
from it.
Pence.
And I think
Vice
the
President
American
Pence, your
people,
time is
I'm going
up.
to say again, can be
Vice
proud
President Pence, I'm
of
sorry, your
what
time
we
is
have
up.
done, And Senator, please
Thank you, Vice
stop
President
undermining
Pence.
confidence in a vaccine.
That was a
Senator
great
Harris,
rebuttal.
let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States.
Here it is, identity politics, baby.
Gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And
talk about her
the
race.
thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work,
Rich, you know what
about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And
This actually
Joe
feels like a
asked me to
debate,
serve
which
with
is
him
more than I
because,
could say for the presidential
I have
debates.
a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco.
Here we go, identity
where
politics.
I created
Boom.
models of innovation.
That's what the
for
left's biggest
law
strong suit
enforcement
is.
In terms of reform of the criminal
Look,
justice
I'm like
system.
you.
I was elected,
Look, politicians,
the
we're
first,
just like you. First
woman
woman
black
of color,
to be
black
elected
woman.
Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States.
So this is
second
important.
only to the United
This is
States
when I
Department
say
of Justice.
Pence cannot
From there,
buy
I took
into
on
her narrative.
everything
Pence
from
cannot buy into her
transnational
framing
criminal
of
organizations to the big
everything
banks
being
that were
about
taking
race,
advantage of
sex,
homeowners,
gender,
to for-profit causes that
and
were taking
identity.
advantage
If he
of
buys into that, this
And then,
debate's
of course,
over.
Now I serve in the United
So this
States
is an
Senate as
important
only
moment.
The second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where
That's
I've
what
been
she
in
wants. She wants to be
regular
the
receipt
first
of classified
female
information
black
about
vice president.
threats to our
That's what she
nation
wants.
and hotspots around the world.
And that's what she
I've
wants to run
traveled
on.
the world. I've met with our soldiers.
Those are what she thinks her
war
credentials
zones.
are, by the way.
And I
This
think
is
Joe has
her
asked me to
qualifying
serve with him
herself.
because he knows that we share a purpose which is about lifting up the American people.
So Pence has
And
to
after
come
the
back
4
with
years
facts
that we
about
have seen
what
of
she's
Donald
done in
Trump
her
unifying
career
our
and
country
dismantle
around
that.
Our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's
Kamala's
doctors
acting
have
like a
given
child, exactly.
misleading answers or refused to
She's
answer
acting like
basic
a
questions about
college
health.
kid,
And my
like a
question to
20-year-old
each of
college
you
kid
in
who just
turn
learned
is,
about
Is
socialism.
this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus.
Keep going. Don't buy into
The
the
care the
identity
President
politics.
received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support.
Absolutely. If
And
Trump
Senator,
acted
I
like
wanna thank you
Kamala,
and Joe
it'd be
Biden
game
for your
over.
Expressions, genuine concern.
Oh,
I also want to congratulate
class
you,
act, dude.
as I did on that phone call,
Mike Pence is such a
on
class
the
act.
historic nature of your nomination.
Don't buy into it.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is, we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year, and the stakes have never been higher.
Thank
but I
you.
think the
Thank
choice
you,
has
Vice
never
President
been
Pence.
clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about
She's going to
presidential
come back with
candidates,
some
and
more
especially
identity
about
politics
presidents,
crap.
especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism,
Investigative
that Donald Trump
journalism.
paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, "No, $750."
I know. I wish he would
We
give a
now know
masterclass on
Donald
it.
Trump
Maybe he
owes
should open up his own university and
is
teach
in
that.
debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know
She says
who
somebody.
the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have
You mean
a
like
right
Hillary
to know
owed money to
what is
all these Saudis
influencing
and Middle
the
Eastern people?
president's
Or like
decisions?
Obama
And
owed
is
a
he
whole
making
bunch of
those
money to
decisions
China?
on the best
Or like
interest of the
like
American people,
Biden
of
owed,
you,
along with Obama,
or
owed thousands
self-interest?
upon thousands of dollars to
Susan, I'm
China?
gonna
This is
address that
ridiculous. This is the contradiction
because
that
it
I'm
has to be
talking about.
across the
People
board.
act
Joe has
like
been
the left is this
incredibly
perfect,
transparent
infallible
over
thing.
many,
But
many
everything,
years.
every single
The
thing
one
that they
thing we
accuse
all
the
know
right
about
of
Joe,
is the
he
exact
puts
same
it
thing
all
that
out
they're
there.
doing.
He is honest. He is forthright.
Honest,
But Donald
please.
Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, Pence is a class
Look,
act right
I
now.
respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life.
He needs to bring out
respect
the
your
teeth a little bit, though.
Public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, who's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes.
Come on, bite a little, bro.
Tens of
Let's go.
Thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released
phone
literally
falling again.
stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
And
President.
turned this economy around by
Oh, look
cutting
at that, the
taxes,
moderator trying to
rolling
cut him
back
short.
regulation,
Thank you,
unleashing
Vice
American
President
energy,
Pence.
fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's
Thank you,
on the
Vice
line
President
if
Pence.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a good
White
segue into our third
great
topic,
segue.
which is about the economy.
Look
This has
at the
been another
moderator and
aspect
Kamala
of
just
life
getting
for Americans
along
that's been so
famously.
affected by
Two
this
sisters,
coronavirus.
two
we
women.
have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged
Kamala.
workers have
I'm so
stopped looking for
concerned.
work. Nearly 11 million
fake.
jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and
Oh, you
create
mean if I
jobs.
make money, I'm going to
Would
be taxed
raising
more?
taxes
No,
put the
I'm good.
recovery
I'll just
at
stick with my
risk? And you
salary.
have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you.
This is a winning point for the
On the issue of
Republicans
the
if Mike
economy,
can
I
just bring out the
think there
teeth.
couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family.
Yes.
On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill.
And he also
benefiting
passed the
top
Hispanic
1%
Prosperity
and the
Initiative.
biggest
He
corporations
also
of
passed
America,
$500
leading
billion
to
towards
a
the
$2
black
trillion
community.
deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people.
Right, with the higher
and
taxes.
through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald
Mercedes,
Trump said he would
thank
do.
you for
I
joining
remember
me.
hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges.
Invest
but also
what? This is the
investing in
thing.
clean
The
energy
government
and
does not
renewable
make
energy.
money. The government is not a business. It has no income. The income is the taxes of the people. So when people like Kamala Harris come in here and say that they're going to invest, that means your money. That means the money you work for is going to be invested into these things. It's not the government's money. So I don't understand. This is a winning issue for Republicans. Always has been. You've heard the phrase socially conservative, fiscally Republican. There's no way to make people richer from the bottom. It has to start from the top. It has to start with job providers.
That if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000.
And then this is the winning issue on the left: free student loan debt, cancel that student loan debt.
People of our country,
But listen,
as opposed to
it's
passing
promises.
a tax bill,
It's
which had
empty
the
promises.
benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Bunch
Vice
of
President Pence,
garbage.
your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust.
I love how he can't even
But the
comment on
latest
what she
economic
says.
report suggests
They just
that's
move
not
on to another question.
Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year?
This
or
is
more?
the moral
You have 2 minutes
posturing
to answer
and the
uninterrupted.
debate posturing of the questions that I've been
President Trump
talking
and I took
about.
office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression.
He should go back and answer
When Joe
to
Biden
what
was
she
vice
said.
president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes
He's not doing good
across
right
the
now.
board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of 4 had $2,000 in savings.
Okay, now we're talking.
And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans,
The problem is that
average
the left
household
hates
income for a
blue-collar
family of
working
4
Americans
increased
and
by
families.
$4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes.
Yep.
It's really
Thank
remarkable.
you.
I mean, right after
Thank you.
a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy.
It's
fought
true.
for
That's
free
how I
and
got my
trade,
job.
and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program.
You see
We
the
literally
difference
spared no expense to
fiscally?
help the American
It's the
people and
difference
American
between
working
we're
families.
going to use your
Joe
money,
Biden and
just
Kamala
trust
Harris
us,
want to raise
versus
taxes.
no,
They
keep
want to
your
bury
money,
our
trust
economy
us,
under a
keep
$2
your money. We don't
trillion
want it.
Green New Deal.
Totally
which you were one
different.
of the original co-sponsors of in the United States
Here we
Senate.
go, Green New Deal,
They
great.
want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland.
You're glad to
And
see a
Joe
level of
Biden wants
intelligence
to
on
go back
stage.
to economic surrender
referring to
to China.
Pence?
That when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs
Mm-hmm.
that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers.
Yep. And he's
Joe
going to
Biden
send
says
all those jobs
democracy's on
right
the
back
ballot.
overseas.
Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth
Thank you.
and opportunity,
Thank you,
4
Vice
more years of President Donald Trump. 2021
Thank
is
you,
going
Vice
to be the
President
biggest
Pence.
economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I
Oh,
saw
so
enough
she
of
gets
it in
the
last
rebut
week's
to what
debate,
he's
but I
saying,
think
but
this
he
is
doesn't.
supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes
He
less than
literally said he's going to
$400,000 a
raise
year.
taxes
Repeal
in
the
the
Trump
first.
tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait,
I'm speaking.
it'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax
She
cuts.
wants him to cut her off.
That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year.
Senator, that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true. That
Is he
tax
only
bill-
cutting? Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
This is what
If
we
you don't
want.
mind letting me
Real
finish.
ideas.
We can then have a conversation.
She's not
okay?
going to answer.
Please.
She's going to move. Moving the
Joe
goalpost.
Biden will not
Liberals.
raise taxes
That's how you
on
do
anyone
it.
who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that.
He's been very clear that in the
Joe
first
Biden
debates, he said it crystal clear.
Is the
Don't
one
get it
who,
wrong. Don't get it twisted. I
during the
will raise your
Great
taxes.
Recession was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back, and now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails
Pence is smooth. That was
of
a
Joe
good. That was a
Biden's
good
success
little
for the
spat
economy
they
that
had.
they
But he
had at
should
the
have kept
beginning of
going.
their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster.
You see,
But
she's
Joe
moving the
Biden, on the one
goalpost.
hand,
This is
did
what the
that.
left does.
On the other hand, you have
like, are
Donald
you going to let me
Trump,
finish? Then they go
who
off in
has
another direction and
reigned
never
over
address your
a
question and call you a
recession
racist
that
if you
is being
try and
compared
stick
the
them to their
Great
point.
Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of
Thank you, Senator
trying to
Harris.
get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing
He's like, Susan,
conditions,
she's
and I
been
just-
talking
this
for
is
half
very
an hour.
important,
Can you
Susan.
give me a
And it's
chance?
We need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish.
I want my time
Please.
back. Okay, girl.
If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition,
Thank you,
they're
Senator
coming for
Harris.
you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let me give you.
If
a
you're
chance.
26 and under your parents'
Well, I hope we have a
coverage, I
chance to
mean,
talk
that was
about
me, but I
healthcare,
mean, you
because
should get your
Obamacare
act
was a
together at that
disaster.
point. Come on.
The American people remember it well. And President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect pre-existing conditions for every American.
Ooh, there you go.
But look,
Say
Senator
something, girl.
Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president
There we go. Get the
that you
teeth
would
out.
ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green
There's video
New Deal,
of it.
Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Here's the thing about
Thank
the
you
Green
very
New Deal.
much,
It's
Vice
hilarious
President.
because
Once
they
again,
refuse to change the
provided
name.
the
They'll
perfect
revise it and
segue
revise
to the
it.
topic,
Usually,
which is
any other
climate
deal,
change.
they would change the
And
name
Vice
to
President
avoid the
Pence, I'd like to
stigma
pose the
around
first
it.
question.
But they love that name. Why is it?
This year we've
Because
seen
it stands for a
record-setting
socialist
hurricanes
agenda.
in the
It
South.
stands
Another one,
for
Hurricane Delta, is now
ending
threatening
fossil
the Gulf.
fuels and
And we have
ending
seen
the blue collar
record-setting
worker and
wildfires
ending all
in
these
the
things
West.
and bringing in
Do you
some,
believe,
ushering in some
as
new
the
age
scientific community has
of
concluded,
greenness and
that
of like
man-made
progressiveness.
climate change
That's
has
why they
made
want to keep the name,
wildfires
because at
bigger,
this point it's about the
hotter,
agenda.
and more
Even if
deadly,
everybody
and have
hates
made
it and nobody
hurricanes
supports
wetter,
it.
slower, and more damaging. You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan.
Anyway,
First,
here's
I'm
the
very
question.
proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded, and our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act.
Des, I guess
largest
you're a former
investment in
leftist
our
now.
public
Welcome.
lands and public
Welcome.
parks
You're in good hands here.
in 100 years.
Pence is classy.
So
You know, what can you
President
say?
Trump has made a commitment to conservation. And to
This is the
environment.
same guy that
Now,
said
with
he
regard to
wouldn't
climate
have dinner
change,
with another woman if his
the
wife
climate
wasn't
is
there.
changing.
And the left crucified him
is,
for that because he wasn't
what's the cause?
prepared. He
What do we
wanted
do
a
about
witness. He wanted a testimony.
President Trump
That's
has made
that's
it
what it's
clear that
called
we're
in
gonna continue to
Christianity.
listen to science.
You always want to have a
Now,
good
Joe
witness, a
Biden
good testimony,
and Kamala
somebody
Harris
to
were pushed back
verify
in
that you're
the
not doing
Paris
anything
Climate
crazy. And the
Accord.
left
They
crucified
proposed
him.
a
Oh,
Green
you're
New Deal,
sexist, blah, blah,
which would
blah. When he's
crush
literally
American
as faithful
energy,
as you
would
can be.
increase the energy costs of
Wild.
American
This
families
is
and
morals
homes,
versus moralists.
and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy.
Absolutely.
You know what's remarkable?
They're trying to
is
manipulate
the United States
the
has
economy to make
reduced
green
CO2
sustainable, but green isn't
more
sustainable yet.
than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation.
Yep.
And we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking.
It's true.
And so
That video
by
went viral.
creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment.
Absolutely.
With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes,
Yep.
the National
Because it's not
Oceanic
global
Administration
warming
tells us
that's
that
causing
actually
these
it's
forest
different
fires.
as they are.
Thank you, Vice President.
There are no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
Yep.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence,
use
I'm sorry, your time is
hurricanes
up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods
Pence.
of a Green New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris,
Great
as
stuff.
the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President
Fact.
Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal.
Also a fact.
But if you look
Contradiction.
at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as
Also
a crucial
a fact.
framework.
This is the
What
inconsistency
exactly
of the
would be
left
the
right here
stance
in
of
its
a
finest.
Biden-Harris administration toward
Well, she's
the
going to
Green
either
New
defer to
Deal? You have 2
Biden
minutes
or she's not going to
uninterrupted.
answer. She's just going to
So,
give some random.
First of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat.
That's a promise.
that
That's not a
Joe
fact.
Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes
Yeah,
for anyone who
Biden's
makes
always
less than
contradicting himself.
$400,000 a year.
You're right, Mercedes.
Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden
And let me guess,
are going to
this
be
is a government-run
about clean
thing.
energy and renewable energy.
Yep. So you're forcing
Because
the
you
market
see,
again.
Joe
You're using our
understands
tax dollars to
that
force the
the
market
west
into
coast
a
of our
green
country is burning,
industry
including my
when that
home
green
state,
industry is not
California.
sustainable. We
Joe
saw that with the
sees
big
what's
windmill fields that were
happening
just
on the Gulf
killing
states,
birds over and
which are
over
being
again,
battered by
and it was just
storms.
abandoned land
Joe
that was
has
bought by
seen
the
and
government.
talked with
You
the
can't
farmers
force
in
the
Iowa,
market. When you
whose
force the
entire
market,
crops
you
have been
cause
destroyed
disruption
because
and you
of
cause
floods.
people to lose jobs and
so
you
Joe
cause
believes,
even
again,
more
in
damage to the
science. I'll
earth.
tell you something, Susan.
And
I
now she
served
says
when
we
I
don't
first
believe
got
in
to
science
Senate
because
on the committee that's
the
responsible
plain
for
and
the
simple
environment.
fact
You
is
know this
that forcing the
administration
market will hurt the
took
environment.
the
But
word
we're
science
anti-science.
off the website, and then took the phrase climate change off the website. We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan
What
is about
science?
saying we're going to deal with it, but we're
You
also
mean the
going to
science that says that there's only two genders? The science that says if you're one race, you can't all of a sudden identify as another race?
You know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who
Science
is
doesn't.
prepared
Science
to
is
lead our
a
country
field
over
of
the course
study.
the next
It
4
can't
years
know or not
on what
know.
is an existential threat.
It's
to
an
us as
inanimate
human
object.
beings. Joe is about saying we're going to
These are the
invest that in
pointless
renewable
talking
energy,
points
that's
of the
gonna be about
left.
the creation of millions of
She's
jobs.
literally just
We will
parroting
achieve
Twitter stuff.
net zero emissions.
I feel like
by
she's got a list of
2050,
memes on
carbon
her
neutral
on
by
her desk.
2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration. And
Selective
really it has
science, that's
been to
exactly
go
right.
backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator
Dang,
Harris
so they're
just
gonna
said
go
that
back into the Paris
change is an
Climate Agreement.
Existential threat. Vice
Let that
President
be
Pence,
known.
do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
No.
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one he was going to repeal
It was a
the Trump
softball.
tax cuts.
That was a hard question,
Those tax
and he
cuts
just
delivered
ducked it.
$2,000
I don't know. He
in
shouldn't.
tax
He should have
relief
gone in
to the average family of
the
four
idea
across
that
America.
all of these scientists
And
are
with regard
backing
to banning
science,
fracking, I just
climate
recommend
change. You know
people
that's
look at the
actually
record. You
not a
yourself
fact.
said repeatedly
That all of
you
these
would ban
all of
fracking.
these
You were
scientists are
the
actually
first
booked
Senate
together into one
co-sponsor of the
little
Green New
subdivision
Deal.
of scientists,
And while
and
Joe
before they
Biden
even
denied the Green New Deal,
refer
Susan,
to them
thank you
for a
for
study,
pointing
they
out
ask them if
the
they're a
Green New
believer
Deal
in
is on
climate
the
change,
campaign
and then
website.
they cite them for
And
the
as
study
USA Today
so that it
said,
manipulates
it's
the
essentially
numbers.
The same plan as
But
you
no, that's too
co-sponsored
heavy for the
with
public.
AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress
I'm glad he's
reducing
talking about the
CO2
Paris Climate
emissions
Accord,
through
though.
American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal
Yes.
that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
This is
Joe
the
Biden
fundamental
wants us to
misunderstanding,
retrofit
one of
4
them,
million
that
Thank you, Vice
people,
President.
that average people on the
buildings.
left have,
It
that
makes
somehow
no
the
sense
government
with
has to get
cost
involved with
jobs.
anything to
President
make it
Trump
better.
Thank you,
is gonna
Vice
put
President.
The
America
minute government
first,
gets involved in anything, it makes it
jobs
worse.
first,
Just
and
look at the
take
DMV,
care
look
of our
at the school
environment and follow
system.
the science.
Thank you.
Look at the
But, you know,
prison
on the issue
system.
of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening?
Is that
Is because
Americans
of
got
a
their jobs
so-called
back
trade
and
war
they
with
made more
China.
money. Sure, there's some
America
tariffs.
lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it.
Or
We
is,
are
or
in
is
a
it because of
manufacturing
COVID?
recession
Because nobody
because
is
of
allowed
it.
to operate their businesses.
And
Could
when
that
we
be it?
look at where this administration has been, There are estimates that by the
The
end of the term of
selectiveness
this
is
administration,
wild. The
they
lack
will
of
have
ability to
lost
have
more
nuanced
jobs
perspectives
than
is
almost
crazy
any
to me.
other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. You know, I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me?
No, because
We're
they
looking
closed
at
all the
people who
freaking
are
jobs.
Trying to figure out
Because
how they're going
COVID.
to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American
Because they
renters
closed all the small
are
businesses.
worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month. This is where the
Obama
economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
I'm sorry,
you, Senator
who's
Harris.
closing the jobs?
Vice President Pence,
Is
let
it
me
the
give you just
federal
15 seconds to
government
respond,
or
because
is
then I
it
wanna move
the
on.
state
Well,
government?
I'd love
Is
to
it
respond.
Cuomo or
Look,
Trump that's closing down
lost
jobs in New York?
Trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it.
The
Joe
Democratic-run
Biden's been a
states.
cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades.
That's exactly right.
And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs.
Yep.
And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes,
you, Vice
rolled back
President
regulation, unleashed
Let
American
him finish.
energy, this administration saw 500,000
Thank you, Vice
manufacturing
President
jobs
Pence.
Yep.
created. And that's exactly the kind
And I
of
worked in the
growth
blue
we're gonna
collar
continue
field.
to
I
see
worked
as
in the
we
blue
bring
collar
our
industry.
nation
I
through
saw those
this
jobs being
pandemic.
rebuilt over the past
The
3
Green
years.
New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice
massive
President
new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I'd like to-
Exactly.
I just need to respond very briefly,
15
please.
seconds, and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move
Thank
on.
you.
Oh, yeah, she's allowed to respond,
Joe
of
Biden
course.
is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China.
Very
We
convincing,
have,
Kamala.
As our next topic. We have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a
also a
potential
huge market for
partner in dealing with
basketball and
climate change in North
entertainment.
Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China?
Fundamental. You
Competitors,
see the phrasing?
adversaries, enemies?
How do you know it's fundamental?
two
Do you know
minutes.
his perspective? Do you know that he thinks it's fundamental? Why would you ask him a question like that?
Before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA.
Talk that
The
shit.
United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest.
That's why,
But
'cause she's
Senator,
vegan.
you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. I think the American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others.
If John
in the
Eric's
United
watching,
States
man, I
Senate.
hear
So,
you, bro. She keeps
now,
cutting
with
them
regard
off.
to China, look, Susan, first and foremost,
Pence is
China
keeping
is
calm
to
right
blame
now.
for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today.
Make it crystal clear, man.
China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people.
That's right.
They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February.
Yep.
Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all
He
travel
sure did.
from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it
Thank
was
you,
xenophobic.
Vice President Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice President
stood
Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold
Vice President
China
Pence.
accountable for what they did to America
Boom.
with the coronavirus.
That's what I'm talking about. Use them
Senator
teeth,
Harris,
bro.
let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors?
We need
adversaries,
them. They're
enemies?
our partners.
You'll have 2 minutes.
They're part
on
of the
your-
world. We need to be part
Susan,
of the
the
world. No
Trump
borders. Womp, womp, womp. That's what
administration's
she's going to say.
Perspective
Oh,
and
and
approach
Trump
to
is
China
racist.
has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's
Yeah,
standing.
they won't let him complete a thought. It's ridiculous.
There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example,
Yeah, I don't know who
they
chooses these
created
moderators,
within
man.
the
It's
White
ridiculous.
House an office that basically
We
was
should have had Joe
responsible for
Rogan from the
monitoring
beginning.
pandemic.
That should have been like a no.
They got away. They got
should have been
rid
a
of it.
non-issue.
Not true.
There was
Let these
a
guys
team
talk for
of
3 hours
disease
live on air.
experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing
Over
sector,
300?
and
Is
the
that what she
American
said?
consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed.
Meanwhile, black unemployment is down,
war,
Hispanic
what they
unemployment
call it.
is down.
Then
You
let's
know,
talk about
overall
Standing.
American
Pew,
worker unemployment
a
is down, but we
reputable
lost 300
research firm,
manufacturing jobs.
has done
The
an
lack of
analysis
nuance is just absurd.
that shows that leaders of all of our
Yeah,
formerly
she's been talking
allied
for like
countries
half an hour.
have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head
In
of the
some ways,
Chinese
I think that'll
Communist
work to a
Party,
benefit
than they
for
do
Trump,
Donald Trump, the
because
president of
the
the
longer
United
she
States,
talks, the
commander-in-chief
crazier she
of the
sounds.
United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global
How original.
leadership over
Trump
the past
bad.
several years.
How original.
And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China.
Yeah, that was the first thing I
as
said,
the
John
Vice
Eric. As
President
soon as I got on
mentioned.
here, I'm like,
We've
she's
seen
trying to be
strains
the
with our
female
traditional
Obama.
allies
That's what she's trying to
in
do.
NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships.
Obviously
And
not, because the
so
minute
we
you have
know
a
this in our
relationship with
personal and professional
Putin
relationships.
or
You gotta
Kim
keep your word to your
Jong-un,
friends.
all of a sudden you're a traitor.
Gotta be loyal
I
to
thought
your
it was
friends.
about
People who
relationships.
stood with you, gotta stand with them.
And she's
Gotta
speaking
know
again,
who your
which I think is good because
adversaries
then
are
he gets to
and keep
respond.
them in check.
And he gets to
But what we
dismantle
have
anything she
seen with
says.
Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and
What are you in ninth
embraced
grade?
Dictators around the world.
What friends are you
Let's take,
talking
for
about?
example, Russia.
This is politics.
So
You get the job done or
I
you
serve on the
don't.
Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia
She's Lindsay
interfered in
Lohan
the
and Mean
election
Girls
of the
right
president
now.
of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director.
You guys have no
of
idea
the
how
FBI,
crazy I feel
said the
just talking to
same.
myself alone in my
But
room right
Donald
now.
Trump, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the
Pastor
word of the
Liz.
American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO.
Ugh.
He's walked away
Waste of money.
from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear
Our
deal.
friends at NATO,
which
you
now
mean the
has put us in a
Saudis
position
and the people in the Middle East and the people
where
who
we are
think that this
less
is all
safe
like
because they are building up what might
it's
end
like
up being
blame
a
America
significant
hour over in
nuclear
NATO?
arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear
Tell
deal
us
with
why,
friends,
baby.
with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism,
Which is
he
good.
pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan,
Oh, yeah?
it's about relationships.
Because he's the only
And
president in the
thing that
past
has
30
always
years that
been
hasn't
part
got
of
us
the
into a
strength of our
war.
nation, in addition to
only
our
one.
great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand.
He doesn't
what it
understand
means
how to
be
back
honest.
down and be fearful.
Thank you.
That's what he
Thank
doesn't
you,
understand.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Instead,
Vice
he's
President,
fostering
continue to
relationships with the
please.
most dangerous
Thank
countries
you.
in the world and making sure
Well,
we're
President
safe so
Trump
we
kept
don't go
his
to
word
war
when
with
he
them.
moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did.
Yep.
We've stood strong with our allies.
Just like
But
the
we've been
past 3
demanding.
presidents did.
NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to
Spot
President
on,
Trump's
Johnny.
leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty.
Yep.
Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, 2 of the
I don't know who
ISIS
that is.
killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller.
But we had to lead
Breaks
from
my heart to
behind
reflect
because that
on
was
it, but the
Obama's
military came
mission,
into the
his
Oval
vision
Office,
for the country. We're going to
presented a
lead from
plan.
behind, as in we're not going to
Said they
take
knew what
advantage of
Kayla
anything.
was.
We're going to
Baghdadi had held her for 18
we're going to back
months,
off and
abused
let
her
everything play out.
mercilessly before they
But then
killed
we're
her.
also going to get into wars that we don't
But
need to.
when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS
Oh,
caliphate.
it got too real. Got to
And
cut them
we
off.
Talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear
Gotta cut 'em
deal.
off.
I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8
Yeah, the
billion
Iran, this is crazy.
to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism.
Yeah.
President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President.
Yeah.
And
You better cut 'em off.
Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad.
Thank you,
to do
Vice President.
harm
God
to
forbid you talk about how
President
Obama
Donald
gave
Trump
like
took
millions
you,
and
Vice
millions of
President.
dollars
And America
to
is
Iran
safer,
in
our
order to buy
allies
nuclear
are safer,
weapons.
and
That's
America will
ridiculous to me.
President Donald
While they were
Trump
being hostile with
never
us.
Thank you, Vice President.
take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes.
This
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your
the
daughter.
word that comes to mind when I think of the
I'm
left
so
is
sorry.
audacity.
I'm so sorry.
The audacity.
What happened to her is awful. And it should have never happened.
Pence is definitely the
And I know
counterweight.
Joe feels the same way.
He's definitely the adult. in
And
the
I
room.
know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like
So, after the
Kamala
strike
just
on
doesn't
Soleimani,
know
there
what
was a
she's
counter
saying when
strike
she starts speaking,
on our
and she's
troops
just
in Iraq.
figuring it out along the way and just piecing it together. I
And
know, because that's a lot of like the BS that I talk about sometimes. I'll just start
suffered
talking and
serious
figure out how to
brain
end the
injuries.
sentence
And do you know what
halfway
Donald
through.
Trump dismissed
I feel
them
like
as?
that's what the left does all the time.
And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military
Once again,
as suckers
conjecture.
and losers,
Conjecture.
Donald Trump?
It's never happened.
who went to Arlington Cemetery
There's no video. There's no
and
pictures.
stood above the grave
There's
of our
unknown
fallen
sources
heroes
for this. But
and
there's
said,
12 known sources that
"What's
say
in
it
it for
didn't
them?"
happen. But 2 or
Because, of
3
course,
unknown
you know,
sources
he
that
only
say it
thinks
did.
about what's
Who are
in
you
it
going to
For
believe?
him. Let's take what he said about John McCain.
Okay, he
great
openly admitted he
American
said it because
hero.
he didn't like the guy. He didn't like the guy before. He's not going to switch it up
Donald
now that he
Trump
died.
says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war.
No, it's because he
And
got caught.
This is very important.
Which
when
is
you want
still
to
mean,
talk about
but he was talking
who is
because he didn't
current
like the guy.
commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed.
She knows
And
what it is
Donald
because she's friends
Trump
with Hillary.
Had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden would hold Russia to account for
The
any
audacity this
threats
chick has, man.
to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives.
Oh, you love the
for
troops,
sake
don't
of
you,
our
girl?
democracy and our safety.
Thank
Except
you,
when their
Senator Harris.
BLM
This
is
such an
riding
important
out in the
issue, but we have
street.
other important issues as well, and
Susan,
I
I
want to make
respond
sure
to
we
that.
have a chance
I really have
to talk
to
about.
respond to that.
My mom and
She
here
has
dogging
15 seconds
Kamala
because-
Harris.
Well, I got to have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look,
Well, I'm sorry, but Vice President
Look,
Pence, you've
I-
had more time than
What
she's
am I
had
doing with my life?
so far.
slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy.
Talk that shit,
I can
bro.
assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
The American
President
people
Pence,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President Pence,
I love
did
how
not
he's, the minute he
expand
starts saying
her-
something
I did not
convincing, they're
agree
like,
to
oh,
the
wait,
rules
wait,
for
wait,
tonight.
wait.
Joe Biden
Your
and Kam-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves
Oh, you're
moving
being
from
so
one topic
neutral.
to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you,
Go right
which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic
He's
was.
such a class
And that
act.
is the Supreme Court. On Monday, the Senate Judiciary
this is
Committee
gonna
is
be
scheduled
juicy.
to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to
Oh,
the
she's
Supreme Court.
now
Senator
Christians.
Harris, you'll be there
Listen,
as a member of the
listen to
committee.
the way she talks
Her
about
confirmation would
Amy Coney
cement
Barrett, who's
the
an
court's
Orthodox
conservative
Catholic.
majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling.
This should
Access
be
to
a
abortion
deciding
would then
issue
be
for
up to the
Christians.
states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do?
First of all,
Would you
see,
want your
this is
home
the
state
phrasing
to
again.
ban
Nobody wants to
all
overturn
abortion?
Roe v.
You
Wade.
have 2
ACB
minutes.
didn't say it,
Uninterrupted.
Trump didn't say it,
Thank
Pence
you
didn't
for
say
the
it.
question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out
Of course.
Qasem Soleimani.
Because they hate America.
It's really inexplicable, but
And they
with regard
side
to
with
Joe
radical
Biden,
Islam, of
it's
course.
explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential
Shit,
that
I
we have a
didn't know that.
commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect
Absolutely.
American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic
He's hitting
about
every
the
note, man.
opportunity
He's
to see
doing good
Judge
right
Amy
now.
Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike
If you
Justice
guys don't know,
Kavanaugh
Amy
received
Coney
with
Coney Barrett
from
has,
you
what,
and others,
7 kids?
we hope she
2
gets
of
a
which are
fair
adopted from
hearing.
Africa.
And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when
That's what I'm talking about.
Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was...
Listen, Christians.
Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
Oh,
Pence. Your
you
time
make it
is
too much
up.
sense.
When the hearing takes place,
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and
Smart.
confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
That was
Supreme Court of
smart.
the United States.
Senator
You really
Harris,
gonna attack her
you're
for being
the
a
senator
Christian?
from and former
Put her on the
Attorney General
defensive.
of
That's
California.
classic
so let me
debate.
ask you a parallel question to the one that the Vice
Yo,
President.
this
If Roe v.
moderator
Wade
is
is
something
overturned,
else.
what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion?
So just leave that
And
for
you
what
have
it is. If she
2
doesn't
minutes
respond to it,
uninterrupted.
Thank
that
you,
means she's
Susan.
okay
First of
with the
all,
idea that
Joe
Amy
Biden
Coney
and I
Barrett
are
is
both people
wild
of faith.
because she's a Christian.
And it's insulting to suggest
Did she say she's a
that we
faith?
would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as
Practicing
President of the
Catholic,
United States.
pro-abortion practicing
On the
Catholic,
issue of this,
who believes in the
this
gender
nomination.
spectrum.
Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people, We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States.
These are the lies that I've been telling my Christian brothers and sisters about.
Has come up, it's been
They
about
claim belief in God. You have little to no evidence of it. Know them by their fruits. What are the fruits of these people?
People are in the process of voting right now.
Fruits are abortion, a love for abortion, a love for the gender spectrum, a love for transgenderism, a love for critical race theory.
And then
those are the fruits of these people on the Democratic left.
Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body.
See, the Christian woman declaring her love for abortion.
And the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic.
And there we go, moving the goalpost. Because this is a losing battle. Because you're not going to out-Christian Mike Pence.
7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because
Back to the pre-existing conditions, which he's already addressed.
Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before,
and he already addressed
it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore.
It's true.
And here's the thing.
If you're 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. You got to get out and get a job and get your own insurance. God forbid.
Let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
That's
you
true
mentioned
leadership.
Earlier, Vice President Pence said the president was committed to.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means, and it's happened to me. You get fined if you don't get it.
But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says. President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life.
Amen. Amen. Hold on.
I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic.
I didn't mean to hit the laugh. I wanted to hit the claps.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood.
And some people even want afterbirth.
Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed?
Smart man.
There have been 29 vacancies.
Look at that smirk she gave him.
On the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know.
She's going to pass it off on Biden, or she's going to say no and blatantly lie.
The United States. Are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
Avoiding the question.
In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. Okay. In 1864.
That's all you needed. That's it.
I think.
And now when she avoids the question, she's going to look dumb.
I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln
Good old Abe.
was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate.
And he didn't fill the seat.
But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision.
Look at that shit-eating
about
grin.
who will be the next
Excuse
president of
my
the United
language.
States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will
My decision is
serve
Amy Coney
on this
Barrett.
most important body for a lifetime.
Yep.
Thank you.
My decision is
Senator
Amy Coney
Harris.
Barrett.
Susan,
I voted
are
for that
voting right
decision
now.
4
They'd
years
like
ago
to
when
know
I
if you
voted
and
for
Joe
Donald
Biden
Trump.
are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Go for
Let's
it.
talk about packing.
You once
Come
again
on.
gave a non-answer. Joe
Yep.
Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And
Get
if you
him.
haven't
Get
figured
him,
it out
Mikey.
yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice President,
I got
I
to tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject
Yep.
the Biden-Harris ticket
Yep.
come November the 3rd.
Some people
re-elect
don't
President
cherish that,
Donald
though.
Trump, and
Some people
stand by
want to
that
tear down the
separation of powers
system.
in a
They
nine-seat
want
Supreme
they
Court.
want
let's
to
talk
get
about
rid of
packing
the
the court
electoral
then.
college. They want to
Let's
do all
talk
these
about
crazy
that.
things.
Yeah, I'm about to.
He's
So-
like, I'm waiting.
The Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee,
Audacity.
Susan,
This
as
is
you
the
know,
word of the day.
and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological,
condescending.
people
That's
who
the-
have
that's
been
the word for
reviewed
it.
by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what
Identity
they've
politics.
been doing.
He
You
has
wanna
to
talk
he has to
about packing
reject
the
that
court?
entire
Let's have that
premise. He
discussion.
has to reject the entire premise.
Thank you.
Because
Thank
if
you,
not, he
Senator.
loses.
Let's go on and
And she
talk
didn't
about
answer the
the
question.
issue of
Let that be
racial
noted. She did
justice.
not
I
just
answer
want
the
the
question
record
about
reflect she
packing the
never
courts.
answered the question.
Yes, there you go,
The American
Mikey.
people-
Thank
Maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question,
Thank you.
but I think
Thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed.
That would never
after police
fly with
officers
the
executed a
Republican
search warrant
nominee.
in a
If
narcotics
he refused to
investigation
answer,
broke into her
a question,
apartment.
you wouldn't stop hearing about
The
it.
police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that.
He has to go strict
He used a
facts on
gun
this Breonna
registered to
Taylor
him
stuff.
to fire a shot,
You can't
which
buy into
wounded an
identity
officer.
politics.
The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor,
You heard the phrasing
was
of that?
justice done? You have 2 minutes.
Fired 20 rounds
I don't
into the
believe so, and
apartment.
I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family, and her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on.
Which
out
she
on
was
the
fired
street.
from a year before the
She could
shooting,
then
by the way. Because they
nurse
found a
and
dead
save
body
her
in a car that she
and her
rented.
life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it
Yep.
brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed,
Oh, she shot out Dave Chappelle.
during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country,
It's a topic so that they
every
can
race,
allow for
every age,
racial
of
identity to
every
take center
gender,
stage. Because
perfect
obviously it's a
strangers to
losing
each
issue
other,
for Mike Pence because he's a
marched
straight white male,
shoulder
cisgender
to
male.
shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice.
This
under
is all
law.
just posturing.
And I was
This
a
is
part of
all.
those
I
peaceful
care.
protests.
I care so much.
And
I care.
I
You could
believe
replace my
strongly
audio with hers.
that
I
first
care.
of all, we are never going to
I care so very
violence,
much.
but we
So
always
much I care
must
about
fight
you.
for the values that we hold dear,
See, the
including
values.
the fight to achieve
You mean
our
like
ideals.
abortion?
And that's why Joe Biden and
Abortion
I have
up
said
until
on this
9
subject.
months.
Look, and I'm
That's the kind of
a former
values you
career
mean?
prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you
Bad
prosecuted
cops
a
are bad
hell
for
lot
good
of black
cops.
men for smoking
we need
weed.
Reform
You prosecuted
of
a
our
whole lot
policing
of
in
them.
America and our criminal justice
And then
system,
you
which is why Joe
complained
and I
or
will
kid about smoking
immediately
weed on the
ban
Breakfast Club when
chokeholds
you
and
started trying to run for
carotid
president.
George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will.
George Floyd would
require
be
a
alive today if
national
he wasn't
registry
addicted to
for
fentanyl.
police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform,
Going ham, guys. I'm
get
sorry.
rid of private prisons and cash bail. And
Thank
we
you.
will decriminalize marijuana And
Thank you,
we will
Senator Harris.
we will expunge the records of those who have
Thank you,
been
Senator
Oh, she's
convicted
got to say the
of
marijuana thing, because if
This
she
is
doesn't say the
time for
marijuana thing, he
leadership
knows he's
on a
about to get that.
Tragic issue
Senator Harris,
of
your time is
unarmed
up.
black people in America. Who
Thank
have
you,
been
Senator
killed.
Harris.
There we go. Identity politics.
Vice
Mike, you
President
got to
Pence,
get
let me
rid of
pose
all
the
that.
Same question to you.
Same question to
case
you,
of Breonna
because I don't
Taylor,
want to give you a parallel question,
was
because I
Justice
want you to
You
answer
have 2 minutes,
and be
uninterrupted.
put away for being a white person.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But I'm entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think,
That's how you do it, bro.
and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon, was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together.
This is great. He's not buying into identity politics. I'm not saying a black woman whose story was burnt. He's just saying a person. This is
from
good.
Joe Biden
This is
and
good.
Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities
This is good, man.
is a great insult
Yep.
to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know, who puts on the uniform of law
Holy
enforcement
crap.
every day, that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats.
Is that a
Senator Harris,
freaking bug?
you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American
That's
Thank you,
right.
Vice
and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership,
Thank you,
we'll
Vice President
always
Pence.
stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done
Vice
from day
President Pence,
one, and
thank
that is
you. Your time
improve
is
the
up.
lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice
Record
President
unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I
Oh,
will
of
not
course.
sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am
Ooh,
the only one
sassy
on this
lady.
stage
Sassy lady.
who was personally prosecuted, everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
And you prosecuted
I'm
a
the
lot of
only
black
one
men
on
for
this stage who's
marijuana.
prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's
Bro,
homeowners.
he's got a bug
I'm
on
the
his
only
head.
one on this stage
Ugh.
who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is
Oh, that's
that
such bad
we are
timing.
talking about an election in 27 days, where last week
Move
the
your head,
President of
dude.
the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans
This is gonna be
and
a meme.
refused to
This
condemn
is so
white
meme-worthy right
supremacists.
now.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance.
This is
He
oh,
didn't
the
do
internet
it,
is
and
gonna
then he
have so
doubled
much fun
down.
with this.
And then he said, when pressed,
Jesus,
stand back, stand by. And
this is a
this is
non-issue.
a part
There's
of the
entire
pattern
freaking
of
compilations
Donald
of Trump
he
rejecting white
he called
supremacy.
Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act
There's a
Muslim
fly on his
ban.
head,
He
dude.
on the issue of Charlottesville, where
They
people
have him
were
bugged.
peacefully
Oh, it left. It
protesting.
left.
The need for racial justice,
God.
where a young woman was killed.
That was one
and
of the most
on the
crucial
other side,
points
there
of
were
this.
neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets.
This is where we didn't want it to evolve
slurs.
into or devolve
And
into
Donald
is
Trump, when asked about it, said-
identity politics.
There were fine people on both sides.
He needs to come back at
This
this
is who we have as
strong.
the president
He needs
of
to hit the
United States.
1-2.
In America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our
Literally
country
finger
together
wagging at us.
Senator Harris.
Literally
and
finger wagging.
recognizes the beauty in our diversity.
This is the condescending
and the fact
nature of
that
the
we all
left.
have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you,
Yes.
Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan. is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists.
In the same exact video.
Repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record.
Thank you.
Let's go.
I really need to make this point.
Of course she's going to stop him there.
When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought
doing so good,
for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President.
I can't wait to watch the Daily Wire after this and hear them talk about how good he did.
And we'll do it for
I can't wait, because it was so disheartening last time to hear them dog on Trump.
Issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election itself.
Susan, he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that.
Oh, God.
First of all,
I bet you she gets a minute and a half.
Having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda.
Her biggest problem is that she's not in cahoots with Joe Biden. They have two different outlooks on everything. So everything she says, she's saying, but Biden's already said the opposite.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
I would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms.
These are the ideas that are poisoning America today. Implicit bias, unconscious bias, critical race theory, intersectionality, feminism, all of these things that are somehow these little ghosts that are swooping around in our brains. Implicit bias, for those of you that don't know, is not the idea that you're biased towards somebody or racist towards somebody because you want to be, but it's because you're unconsciously biased. So it's not even conscious bias where you're saying or thinking something. It's unconscious. So you're thinking, it's the thought that you're thinking of. It's a ghost of a ghost.
If your ticket
so
wins,
of course there's no way to measure
refuses to
that. So which makes these
a
arguments
peaceful
just
transfer of power,
full of garbage,
what
full of
steps would
hot
you and
air.
Vice President Biden
There's no way to
take? What
dictate
would happen
or measure any of
next?
it.
You have 2 minutes.
I didn't even hear the question.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket.
Oh, big surprise. The Warhawk rhinos like Biden over freaking Trump.
Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign.
Yeah, Trump is already getting rid of the implicit bias trainings in government itself and any government-related business. I hope he gets rid of it across the country.
To fight for our democracy.
I hope that none of our federal schools or private schools are allowed to
bring
teach
integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy.
No, you don't.
And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early.
This is the Biden line.
To vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days.
Vote. Go to joebiden.com and vote.
About what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy.
We're going to win.
With what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people,
white supremacy,
he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President
she's so
Pence,
proud of
President
nothing.
Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally
see the posturing of that question? If he refuses, what's your
Susan,
role?
first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election.
There we go. Reject the premise of the question. That's how you do it. That's how you debate.
The establishment in Washington, D.C., and establishment.
He's impressing me right now, man.
Years.
Not that it matters.
President Donald Trump,
I'm a YouTuber with 1,000 views.
has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence.
Vote for Biden so I can be your president. That's Kamala. I'm going to meme that,
we see this president's record, where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you,
he circles back and
Senator,
answers the question.
Your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election.
Yeah, there you go, bro.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign.
Yep, it came out today.
There were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche.
Shots fired, bro.
What you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting.
Yep.
Create a massive opportunity for voter fraud.
Hey,
we have a free and fair
every
election.
Point.
We know we're going to have
smart
confidence
man.
in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be
I hope
reelected
he runs in 2024. Shoot.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown.
A student,
she's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah.
You know who we should listen to about politics? Children.
When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When
That's
I watch
because
the
you've
news,
never paid taxes and you don't know what you're talking about, kid.
Citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates
because you've never been in a relationship
trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question.
Corny
and
move a moderator could make.
Let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young.
Well, this is good because
America,
Pence looks more like Mr. Rogers than anything else. So him talking to kids is going to be perfect. Also, he's never sniffed a kid like Joe Biden has. So I'm sure he's kind of more
freest and most prosperous nation
probably beneficial for children.
In the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing.
Yeah, that really sounds like an 8th grader.
Local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative.
And he brings up a good point, because if you talk to anybody in politics, they'll tell you people are not the same as they are in the public eye.
Here in America,
they get along.
We can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight.
Because they're the elite
But when
class.
the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you,
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned that
Thank you,
through
Mr.
the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
Will you be
First of all,
a neighbor?
I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear
Young
her
leaders?
words, when I hear
That
your
dude probably
words,
got a
Brecklin,
C in social studies.
I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be. That is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be.
It's also a sign of being
that
a
brings me to
child.
Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run.
This is how all those people on my
is
Facebook
after
channel
Charlottesville
that
we talked about earlier.
that talk about, oh, I'm not Democrat and
It's
I'm
so
not Republican,
troubled
I'm
him and upset
unbiased.
him
That's
like
how
it
they
did all
sound. They
of
sound
us,
like an eighth
that
grader.
there was that kind of hate and division.
Here we go.
What
Fear
propelled Joe
mongering
to run for
versus
president
the American
was
dream.
to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening.
Trump is bad.
Joe has
That's
a
that's going to be her
long-standing
closing
reputation
argument.
of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what
Really?
he's going to
Never
do as
seen it.
president.
Maybe
Joe
with the
Biden
rhinos.
has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You mean you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love.
She said Joe
And
so much. I feel like that's
Brecklin,
intentional.
when you think about
She
the
didn't say
future,
President Biden.
I do believe the future
They wanted
is
it.
bright.
They want him to be really safe.
And it will be
Joe.
because of your leadership.
He's just Uncle Joe.
And it will be
He's
because
completely
we
harmless.
fight for each person's voice through their vote.
That's a tactic. If
and we
I've
get
ever seen
engaged
one.
in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country.
Well, in
and what its
California,
leadership
you'd
looks
probably
like.
be voting already,
Thank
kid,
you,
because they want
Senator
to move
Harris.
the
Thank you,
voting
Vice
age to
President Pence.
16.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched
Stab
this
you in the
debate
face with a
tonight.
soldering iron.
Again, our
Very
best wishes
Christopher
for a
Walken
quick
right there.
recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone
Yes.
who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami.
Be doing
We
another
hope
one of
you'll
these?
join us then. Good evening.
All right. So I made my predictions in the beginning of this. I even made my predictions online, and I gotta tell you, it pretty much turned out just like I predicted, which is crazy because I'm not usually good at this. But just thinking about and look, oh, the wife kisses him. He likes her, man. Oh, look at this beta with the mask on. Why do you guys even watch me, man? It pretty much turned out the way I thought it would. Kamala was going to be trying to interject with her, you know, flowery kind of, you know, stuff and very identity politics. And I'm a victim and you're a victim. If you at home are watching, you're a victim. Meanwhile, Pence is going to be like, America's great. We got some stuff going on. We're working on it. We're fixing it. But it's really good. And you're cool. And that was pretty much the whole thing. That was pretty much the whole dynamic of the debate. Jake Tapper is going to get on here, whatever this guy's name is. And he's going to talk about how Kamala was just so charming and blah, blah, blah. And we're just going to... It's so funny how they force their perspective on us. But to me, this was hands down Mike Pence all day, just rebuttaling every single point that Kamala made. She even tried to say, like, oh, we're doing facts and blah, blah, blah. You know, like, I want to talk about facts. Yeah, bro, I'm definitely going to be doing another live stream for the presidential debates, the town hall. That's going to be interesting, that setup, the town hall setup. So, yeah, to sum it up, I think this went exactly how I thought it was going to be. And if you would have noticed the way that every single question was posed, because this is a CNN debate, it was all implying that based on the question, it was embedded in the question. The answer was embedded in the question. It's like, given that you are already a wife beater, are you going to stop beating your wife? That was essentially every question towards him. Thomas, man, if you missed it, bro, I'm gonna leave it up, of course. But essentially, it all went down the way I thought it would. Very biased questions from CNN, but Pence really rejected every premise of every question, and he even took the time to go back and answer previous questions with his own time when he wasn't being cut off, which I think was a super smart play. He talked about some great things. He talked about being pro-life. He talked about being unapologetically Christian. He talked about family. He talked about Amy Coney Barrett's family. He talked about how he wanted to defend her, and he was hoping that the left wouldn't insult her because of her family and her 2 adopted black children. It was great. He didn't play into identity politics. The only time he got a little dicey was during the Breonna Taylor stuff, which I'm pretty sure the left is going to grab the Breonna Taylor stuff and run that into the ground, show how incompetent Mike Pence is about institutional racism and how he denies that there's institutional racism. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a takeaway for the left. For the right, the takeaway is going to be the entire rest of the debate. I think that's really what it's going to be. So let's see how it plays out. I'm going to find something in here to snip for TikTok and for my Instagram. But guys, thank you so much for joining me with this. This was actually a lot more fun than the other one for some reason. It had a little bit to do with you guys, but also I think just I'm starting to get more comfortable doing this, and just these debates are getting a little better. The first one was really frustrating. So thank you guys for just being here with me, man. And just, chatting with me and having fun, because this is awesome. I don't know what I'm doing. And sometimes it's cool to just get on here and chop it up with people. If you're not following me on Instagram already, I would really appreciate it if you would do that. It's @_AngelKiros, just like my YouTube name. Just add an underscore in the beginning. If you're not following me on TikTok or Newsclapper, which is a new app that I'm verified on, check out Newsclapper. I'm just @Angel there, which is really cool because I've always wanted that So check out Newsclapper, add me there. And if you want to help me, support me, you have a little bit to offer. Thomas is already an awesome patron on there. JL supported me on there as well. So just check out patreon.com/AngelKiros. It'll be in the link in the bio. And whatever you can, what's the word? It's not a donation. I guess it's whatever you can pledge. That's what it is. Whatever you can pledge monthly. Every cent helps, to just get some better equipment, to make sure that the motivation's still there as far as the quality of everything goes. And just contribute any way that you can. I'm grateful. Just by you liking and being here and commenting is enough. But don't go crazy. But if you have it, and if you're willing to, I'm completely open to talking on there. I'm always answering questions and comments on there, and I'm going to be going live on there more too. So thank you guys so much. I'll be back next week. I'm going to try and post in between today and next week. One thing I did tell my Patreon subscribers that I didn't tell you guys yet is that I'm going to be in DC this weekend for a little thing that Blexit is doing. I don't know how much I can say online, but I will be in DC and I'll be vlogging the whole thing. And there's going to be a bunch of Trump supporters that are minorities that are going to be going. So that's going to be really cool. It's going to be a new format of video that you haven't seen from me yet, but something that I really enjoy doing, which is vlogging. So just be on the lookout for that. It'll probably be out Monday or Tuesday. And thanks again. I'll see you guys soon.
Why Jesus called a man a fool. I want to share with you a dramatic little story.
The world's going crazy, but then so am I. Taking time to compose, expose my hell and then organize. Free your mind, everyone got a narrative and a white lie. People painting pictures for the masses just for dollar signs. It's all about the group you're with, I don't care about the life you live. All I see is a small group in your large group that don't see their sin. Nobody look at character, everybody look at color skin. Nobody look at numbers or facts, it's just how it is. Growing up in the modern age with my